don't want to be too close to you.
Welcome one, welcome all to your very own online stretch, flex, and reset class, where we're going over some very basic mobility, flexibility, and strengthening moves that you can do, very beginner friendly for anybody to join in and jump in. You know, some science says that you should be holding stretches for up to 90 seconds to maximize your benefits. We're going to be holding stretches for about 15, 20, 30 seconds here, nothing too crazy. It's always go at your own pace. Feel free to pause the video at any point in time and just stretch for as long as you'd like on that one particular stretch if I'm ever going too fast. Without further ado, we're just going to jump right into it. We're going to start with some breathing and start with our classic chi showers. Taking a deep breath in as the hands come up overhead. And then slowly showering yourself with those hands. Slow, slow, slow. We're going to do that 2 more times. Each time we do it, I want you to go a tad bit slower than the time before. Deep breath in. Deep breath out. Last time around, I want you to go as slow as you possibly can. Maybe close the eyes. Don't worry about the paces of others. As deep and as slow as you can, all the way in. All the way out. Take a moment, recover that breath, relax those shoulders, and we're going to begin with the neck and work our way down the body, focusing this first segment on our joint mobility. And we're going to start with the neck, just kind of shaking the head yes. Great opportunity to practice our positive affirmations here. Yes, we want to be healthy. Yes, we want to be well. Yes, we want the best for ourselves and each other and the world, because we live in this world, and when the world's at its best, we're at our best. Just like that, shaking the head no. You're going at your own pace. It can be slow. It can be a little faster if you'd like to, but I like to go nice and slow here. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. Try not to pause in between your breaths, but having them flow into each other like the ocean waves, ebbing and flowing. No, we're not giving up on ourselves. No, we're not quitting on ourselves. Are you kidding me? When it comes to ourselves, we find a way, or we find an excuse. There's always a way, guys. Remember that. And if there's not, we got to make a way. Back to the center for that maybe shake. That's ear to shoulder. You can even lean down to the side if you'd like to. You can toss up a reach if you'd like, or you can let it hang. You get the stretch that's right for you. Keep in mind, the slower you go, the deeper you breathe, the deeper of a stretch you're gonna unlock in your body. The arm that falls by the wayside, if you'd like to fold it behind the back as well and reach with that arm as well, you can. Up to you. Get the stretch that feels best for you. Taking some deep breaths in as you transition side to side. Exhaling as you fall down to the side. Deep breaths in. Deep breaths out. Let's just go one more time on that other side here. Take your time. No rush. Listen to that body. Get that stretch that's right for you. Find that range of motion. Find that pace. Find that rhythm that's right for you. Just like that, we're going to go one more for the neck here. We're going to drop the chin down into the chest. And then we're going to do our half circles or semicircles, rolling that chin up to the shoulder, back down to the center, and then to the other shoulder. I like to do semicircles with the neck. The neck is one of the joints that's one of the most vulnerable parts of our body. And if you're not used to doing full circles, or your neck's a lot less stronger, that's not proper English. If your neck isn't as strong as the rest of your body, then doing semicircles is a great way to get a beautiful warm up in the neck. All right, so again, going at your own pace, shoulder to shoulder. If you feel confident enough to do a full range of motion circle, you can. But again, that can be a tad bit too much, especially if you don't do any neck exercising or neck strengthening activities. Stick with the semicircles. One more time on each shoulder, at your own pace, and then we're going to come back to center, and then we'll bring that chin back up. Now we might as well get into our flexibility for the neck. That was a lot of mobility, a lot of motion there. Now we're going to do some holds with the neck. We're going to look over that left shoulder or the right shoulder, doesn't matter which side you start with. You can just look over that shoulder and take 1 or 2 fingers and apply some gentle pressure here Really focus on relaxing the shoulders, not shrugging them up into the ears, and really focus on taking those deep breaths in and deep breaths out. Gentle, gentle pressure, never forcing it. One more time, deep breath in, deep breath out. I don't hold the neck for too long. Like I said, it's very fragile part of the body. Just like that, we're gonna look over to that opposite side. Gentle pressure is optional. If you don't wanna add that push with the hands, then do just the look without the pressure. Looking over that shoulder, optional pressure. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. And some people might ask, should I be breathing in through my nose, in through my mouth? What's the most optimal way to breathe? I like to breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth, because the nose has mucus and natural filters in it that help regulate the temperature. And some people say mouth breathing can damage the teeth. So breathing into the nose, out through the mouth is how I like to breathe. But as long as you're breathing, I'm happy. Just like that, we're gonna come back to the center, nice and slowly. And then a couple more for the neck here. This time we're gonna gently pull right ear, taking the right hand, pulling the right ear to the right shoulder. Gentle, gentle pressure, don't force it down. Instead of pulling with more intensity, you can instead bring your opposite hand behind the back and really focus on dropping the elbow down. Really focus on lowering that shoulder away from the ear as you gently pull. If this feels good, you can hold this here, or we can increase this intensity in the stretch by going right foot over left and then leaning down towards the right side. If that's too much, just keep the feet hips width apart or together, and then just lean down to the side without crossing over. Deep breaths into the neck. Deep breaths out. Really good stretch for the trapezials as well as the spinatus. All right, really important that we stretch out that upper back and neck area. One big kinetic chain there. One more time, deep breath all the way in. Slow exhale, back to the top, slow, slow, slow. Take your time on that transition as we switch over to the other side. Same thing, left hand pulling that left ear to left shoulder. Gentle pressure, optional, bringing that right hand behind the back and dropping that elbow down, dropping the shoulder away from the ear, depressing the shoulder. I want your shoulder to press, not you to press. Deep breath in. Deep breath out, optional, left foot over right, leaning down to that left side, and again, taking that deep breath all the way in, deep breaths all the way out. We'll go one more deep breath here. Slow exhale back to the center, and I got one more solid neck move here, and that's just looking up to the sky, raising that chin up as best you can. Taking one or two hands if you'd like to and applying gentle pressure up against that chin as best you can, taking a deep breath in. That one I don't hold too long, just like that. We're gonna exhale as we drop that chin down into the chest. You can hold this here. You can take one or two hands and pull that head down if you'd like to. Or you can even kind of do a no shake. Shake that head no while keeping the chin tucked into the chest, kind of massaging the neck out a little bit here. And then we'll come back to center. And then we're gonna slowly bring that chin back up to neutral, parallel with the collarbone. And there's one more noteworthy neck stretch, I suppose, I'll share with you guys today, and that is to gently place your hand on your temple and making sure that you keep that hand there to prevent the head from turning. We're going to try to imagine like we're turning the head no, but using this hand to prevent us from turning the head, we're just going to push into the hand with the head, pushing into that, using that hand to prevent that turn, but still utilizing that chin to try to turn and look, using your eyes to look over towards that direction as well, to activate a maximum amount of muscles turning at the same time. Eyesight matters. Deep breath in, deep breath out. And instead of turning, we can also imagine like we're dipping down too. preventing ourselves from actually dipping, but still pushing into the hand with the head as well. This is good to get any knots out, cricks in your neck, sleep on the wrong side of the bed one night. Really good here. And go ahead and switch to the other side. Last one here for the neck. I keep saying that, but as I say that, I think of so many more neck stretches. There's just so many. And it's very important that you find the ones that are right for you. All right, so after trying to prevent yourself from turning, you can also try to prevent yourself from dipping. Really good static neck stretch here. All right, it's all about adding as much pressure as you'd like to, never forcing the pressure, but gentle pressure. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. There's plenty more neck stretches, protraction, retraction, tons of great stuff to do, but we're moving down to the shoulders, giving the neck a break. Doing some classic shoulder shrugs next. We can go slow, we can go fast. Still technically working the neck too. Our body's one big kinetic chain. All these muscles are intertwined. Great way to alleviate a lot of stress and tension in the upper back here, whether it's slow or fast. We can also jump into our big shoulder rotations, rolling those shoulders back, making sure we're breathing into the chest cavity as best we can. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. And just like that, we're gonna switch directions. 5-10 circles. That's all it takes, 5-10 seconds. Not trying to fatigue myself, I'm just trying to get that blood circulating in my body. If I want a little bit more out of it, I can get into my big arm circles or my small arm circles. Wherever you feel better, stick to a range of motion that feels right. It can be slow, it can be fast. Find that pace, find that range of motion that works for you. Just like that, go ahead and switch directions. Balance is key. Gotta hit both options, both directions, so we don't develop muscular imbalance here. And if I want to work on my coordination, I can go opposite directions, one up, one down. If that's challenging, start with one thumb up, one thumb down, go in the direction your thumbs are pointing in. When one arm gets up to the top and one gets down to the bottom, you come out wide and you bring it back around. That one is not easy, it takes a little bit of coordination there. If you got it down just like that, go ahead and switch directions. And if that's still too hard though, just do one at a time. One up and around, one down and around. That's it right there. And go ahead and rest those arms, shake it out, shake it out. Like I said, we're not just stretching and mobilizing, we are strengthening these shoulders as well. Doing a couple more shoulder moves, going into our bent over quadruplex next. Slight bend in the knees, hinging over a little bit, keeping the shoulders back. 4 steps, all right. First one, we're gonna go bent elbows, driving them back and up. That's 1. And then straightening the arm out, straight arms on the way back. That's 2. We come out wide for 3. And then we come forward for 4. Hence the quadruplex. All right, so it's back, bent arms, back, straight arms, side, and forward. You can also increase the range of motion by changing the ways your palms are facing, whether they're faced forward, faced to the side, or faced back, or faced to the outside. Every little position you switch to switches little intricate muscles that you target. Up to you, get the movement that feels best. All right, I like switching it up and going in all directions with my palms, just like that. Getting that blood circulating as best we can. Let's just go one more here, back, twice, side, and then front. And let's come back up from that hinge. We got one more for the shoulders for you today. This one, we're gonna make a 90-degree angle in the arm. If it's a little obtuse or a little acute, that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. We wanna maintain this 90 degrees as best we can. And then imagine like there's a pencil on the tip of the elbow there. We're gonna draw a big old circle with it. Big, slow range of motion. We're gonna do a small, quicker range of motion. Up to you. Drawing a big old circle, maintaining that 90-degree angle on the elbow as best you can. We'll go 5 to 10 circles here, breathe through it. Take your time, no rush. All right, unless you wanna go a little faster, if that feels good, go for it. Find that pace that's right for you. and go ahead and switch directions. Same arm, other way, big circles or small circles. All right, especially if you have a rotator injury or a sprain or strain impingement of any kind, tendonitis. All right, really important that we never stretch into pain. Slight discomfort's okay. It's good to challenge yourself from time to time. And just like that, go ahead and switch to the other arm, making that 90-degree angle first, and then going for those big old circles. But remember, never sharp pain, never pinches, all right? Slight discomfort's all right. I like to think on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most pain you've ever felt in your life, 1 being, a cold breeze. You want to make sure you're never stretching into a 4, 5 pain. Nothing past a 4 pain, in my opinion. It's good to push yourself from time to time, but too much stretching can end up tearing your muscles or hurting yourself. So listen to that body. And just like that, go ahead and switch to the other direction here. 5, 10 circles, find that pace, find that rhythm that's right for you. Breathe through it. Doesn't have to be perfect here. We're not looking for perfection. We're just looking for some beginner basic stretches here, helping our blood circulate through our body so that we reduce our risk of injury and promote our overall joint health. And then we're gonna go knuckles together. We're moving on to the elbows, and we're gonna circle out the elbow joint. Now, if you noticed, a lot of the things that we're doing are rotational movements. If you remember anything after today, remember rotation. Rotation, rotation, rotation. Just like that, go ahead and switch directions. When we rotate our joints out like this, we maximize our blood circulation, reducing our overall risk of injury and just promoting our overall joint health. All right, again, you just gotta find that pace, whether that's slow or fast, big circles or small circles, wherever you feel better. And then let's go palms up. We're gonna lasso it out. Big lassos here. All right, if you'd like to, you can toss a little dance move in there, add some flavor to it. All right, have a little music in the background. Dancing's a great way to get a good workout in, burn a lot of calories, and have fun doing so. And then switch directions. Same thing other way, that's all it is. It's just a little dip to the side. Great dance move, catch me on the dance floor. There it is. Now we're moving. And then just like that, we're gonna go palms down, reverse lasso, just like you're swimming. Just keep swimming, just keep swimming, that's all it is. You might feel a little burning sensation in those shoulders, that's normal. Push through it, breathe through it. Don't hold that breath and make it harder than it has to be. Just like that, switch directions, trying to keep those elbows parallel with the shoulders. All right, push through it, keep breathing, and go ahead and rest. One more time, shake it out, shake it out, shake it out. We'll do one more for the elbow here. This time we're gonna help hold it up, trying to hold that elbow parallel with the shoulder, and we're gonna do single arm lassos. Single arm lassos I like to do just because it really focuses on that one arm at a time. So you can really feel that arm circle out as best you can, because we all know us humans are terrible at multitasking. Sometimes doing one at a time is good as well. And then switch directions just like that. 5, 10 circles here, that's all we're looking for. Fast or slow, find that pace, and go ahead and switch to the other arm. And you can go try to do it out wide. If you don't want to hold it, you don't have to. I like to hold it, keep the pressure off from strengthening it too much and really allowing myself to focus on maximizing my mobility. Excellent job. Go ahead and switch directions. Beautiful. And just like that, we're gonna give the arms a break. Shake it out, shake it out, shake it out. Let's hit the wrist real quick. It's just gonna be 5, 10 circles in the wrist. It can be slow, it can be fast. We can do it with the fist or open palms, wherever you feel better. And go ahead and switch directions. At any point in time, if circles bother you due to like a sprain, a strain, an impingement of any kind, you can also do flexion extension instead. Flexion extension, right? Flexion extension. There's always ways to modify if circles are too much. All right, and talk about flexion extension. Go ahead and give those wrists a break. We're gonna focus this next one, a wrist flexion extension stretch that utilizes the breath. All right, so we're gonna focus our feet hips width apart. We're going to focus on having our wrist, when we flex, you got a couple options. You can flex with a fist, flex with talking hands, as I like to call it, or you can flex with wide fingertips apart. We inhale as we flex the wrist on the way up. Exhale as we extend the wrist on the way down. Really focus on having that breath flow where the body goes. Constantly breathing as we're moving. I like to say the only time we should ever be moving and not breathing is if we're underwater or doing some fancy yogic breathing technique. Very important to constantly be moving and breathing together at the same time. If you run out of breath before you get all the way down, just switch to that opposite direction. All right, breath flows where the body goes as best you can, one at a time if you'd like to. If you want to go both of them together, you can. Really focusing on that wrist extension on the way down and that wrist flexion on the way up. There's even an option to bring the feet a little wider than hips width apart. And then we can go up on the tippy toes on the way up to the top. Hold it for a second or two. And then exhale as we sink down into a squat. I don't want to sink my hips past my knees. All right, I want to stop there and then back up to the top there. Breath flows where the body goes. Focus on that breathing as best you can. Progress, not perfection. Still focusing on that flexation on the way up to the top. Focusing on that extension on the way down. Last one here. On the way up to the top, I'm going to have you hold the top. Maybe walk the feet in, pivot the feet in as best you can. You can even go up on your tippy toes, stretch like you're being pulled apart. One more deep breath all the way in. Exhale out to the side. Beautiful. All right. Moving down from the arms, we're going to hit the hips. If you have weaker balance, I want you out into a wider stance. It's going to give you more support. If you want to challenge your balance, you're going to keep your feet together. We're going to shoot 4 big and slow circles. If that's too much, maybe quick and small circles, maybe something in between, or maybe you just stick with your flexion and extension instead. All right, if you're doing those circles, make sure we breathe. I like to exhale on the way forward, inhale on the way back. But as long as you're breathing, I'm happy. Again, find that breathing technique that works best for you. All right, and if you're doing your circles just like that, switch directions, same thing other way. You can either go hands on the shoulders, if you like, hands on the hips, or you can go hands on the head, wherever you feel better. Hands on the head kind of distributes a little bit more weight into the stretch, a little bit more intense of a stretch. If it's too much, keep those hands on the shoulders or the hips, wherever you feel better. One more circle around, and we'll come back up to the top. And then we're going to go out nice and wide here. This next move will go out as wide as we can go without doing the splits on me. We'll prime with some basic flexion extension, kind of driving the hips back, pushing them back as far as you can. All right, not trying to lock out the legs, keeping a slight bend in the knees, and then slowly coming back forward, driving the hips forward, and not trying to go too far forward. All right, the hips just as far forward as you can without losing balance. All right, so we're gonna go flexion extension here, driving the hips back, keeping that slight bend in the knees, but letting the hamstrings elongate. Deep breaths in on the way back up to the top. And pushing the hips slightly forward. Beautiful. Now that we prime those hips here, we're going to bring those hands from the hips to that low back area, right above those glutes as best you can. All right, we're going to try to push the hips slightly forward. Now what we're not doing, we're not going as far back as possible. I don't see this. All right, that's not what we're doing. We're just slightly pushing the hips forward. All right, eyes to sky. And then I want you to imagine like you're squeezing the entire earth together with your feet. Squeeze those hips together, those adductor muscles, flex that groin area, and squeeze, squeeze, squeeze those inner thighs together while slightly pushing the hips forward and maintaining eyes to sky. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. Keep squeezing, one more time. Deep breath all the way in, deep breath all the way out. And slowly we're gonna bring those hips back. And then slowly we're gonna reach down to the ground nice and slow. Take your time. The slower you go, not only the safer of a stretch you're gonna get, but the deeper of a stretch you're gonna get. You don't have to touch the ground. we're just reaching down towards it as best we can. If this feels good, you can just hold this here. If you want more out of it, you can bound. If you're bounding, adding some pulses to it, you can stay down, or every 3 to 5 reps after you bound, you can come back up to the sky, reach up to the sky, and then go back down to bounding. This is going to be focused more on mobility and the low back and hips. All right, or again, you can hold it. Now, if you're holding, you got a couple more options. If you're holding, we can go one hand towards the ground, one hand towards the sky. Follow the hand up with your eyes. Take a deep breath all the way in. Slow exhale as we transition to the other hand. And that's the simplified version. You can do that 2 or 3 more times if you'd like to, or if you want something more advanced, you can walk your hands towards your feet. One, if you go to the left side, your right hand stays by that left foot as the left hand reaches up to the sky. Deep breath in as the eyes follow the hand up to the sky. Slow exhale as you transition all the way to the other side. Both hands walking to that right foot, left hand staying by that right foot, and then reaching up as best you can, following that hand with your eyes as best you can. Deep breath in. Slow exhale back to the center. Take your time. Once you come back to the center, we're gonna slowly, keyword slowly, stand ourselves back up. Slow, slow, slow. Let that blood from the head come back down into the body. All right. And we'll give that wide stance a break. We'll come back to it though. We're gonna walk those feet back in. And we're gonna move down to the knees next. Waking up these knees with a couple of butt kicks. Heels to hip, one step at a time. They can be slow. It could be a little faster if you'd like to. You can even go for a hug, 2-3 seconds tops. I like to keep it moving because movement generates heat, and that's why we call it the warm-up. All right, but if you want to hold it 20-30 seconds and then switch to the other side 20-30 seconds, feel free to do that. But if it's early in the day, you're ready to activate these knees, I recommend keeping it moving. You can also go for some heel taps, tapping the inside of the heel. All right, or you can tap the outside of the heel. You can even alternate between the two. Go inside, go outside, inside, outside. However you'd like to alternate, up to you. All right, listen to that body. Get the option that feels best for you. All right, if you want to activate the knees a little bit more, we got our high knee marches. Getting the knees up to the hands that are slightly higher than our elbow height. All right, if you'd like to take that up a step, you got your knee hugs. That one's a little advanced. Again, you can hold it if you'd like to, or 2-3 seconds tops, and then switch. And to maximize that range of motion, you got your knee hug with a calf raise. That one's pretty advanced there. Takes a lot of balance, but is how you maximize that range of motion. Showing you from the side here. Knee up to the chest, going up on the balls of the feet in a almost explosive pace. Breathing through it, and go ahead and rest. This next one, last one for the knees for now at least, all right, is going to take a lot of balance. Hold on to something if you need to, tap down when you need to. We're going to try our best to get the knee up to the hip, parallel with the hip, and then we're going to circle out the knee joint. It can be slow, it can be fast. Again, as you know, you find the pace that's right for you. Always tap down if you need to. Balance is key. And just like that, same leg, switch directions. Gotta hit both directions. Balance is key here. And breathe through it. A lot of focus on right here. Very important to never forget and never neglect the breathing. And then switch legs. Same thing, other leg. Just spending a little bit more time on the knees. I like to focus a little bit more time with the knees here. All right, very important part of our body that we tend to neglect. And then go ahead and switch directions. Rotation, rotation, rotation. Remember that. And again, if circles bother you, you got flexion, extension instead. Always ways to modify. And go ahead and rest. I know I keep saying last one for this and that, but I got one more for the knees here for you, maybe two more. You never know when it comes to me. But with these, we're gonna have our feet about hips width apart. We're gonna use our hands to guide our knees. That means we're not leaning and putting pressure onto the knees. We're using the hands to guide the knees in a circular range of motion in the opposite directions. All right, it's okay if you come up onto the edges of your heels or your toes. Really focus on that circular range of motion with the knees. It's okay if those knees pass those toes a little bit. Get in that extra range of motion as best you can. And same thing, switch directions. Again, follow the pace that's best for you. Breathe through it. Don't put too much pressure leaning onto those knees. And finally, we're gonna go feet together, and we're gonna draw that circle in the same direction with both the knees next. All right, you can do it without the hands if you'd like to. It's okay if you come off the heels a little bit. Hold on to something if you need to. Still takes a little bit of balance. And just like that, we're gonna switch directions. Breathing through it, breathing through it. Really good for the sides of the knees here, the patella, meniscus. Working on that rotation as best as possible. And nice and slowly come back up to the top, giving the knees a break there. Moving down to the ankles. This time you can keep it on the floor, circle out on the floor, or you can take it off the floor. Both are great options. This one isolates the ankle and works on the balance. This one puts more pressure on the ankle and the knee. Again, it can be slow, it can be fast. You can toss a dance move in there if you like to, wherever you feel better. And same ankle, switch directions, that's it. That's all it is, just rotating a little stanky leg, basically. Rotating that ankle as best you can. And switch ankles. Going at your own pace, 5-10 circles, 5-10 seconds, that's it. A little bit goes a long way, especially a little bit of quality. And just like that, same ankle, switch directions. Beautiful. All right. Now that we got our joints all warmed up, let's worry about our major muscle groups next. We're gonna stretch out the Achilles and the calf, gastrocnemius and the soleus here. We're gonna start with our feet hips width apart. We're gonna take one small step forward, not a big step, 6 inches to a foot tops. Slight bend in the back knee here. Then we're gonna really focus on curling the foot in the front. Really focus on flexing the Achilles. Curl, curl, curl those toes towards you as best you can, pulling those toes as best you can. If that feels good, you can just hold that there. If you want more out of it, again, slight bend in that back knee. You can reach down to that knee there. You can reach down to the tibialis, the shin there, or you can go all the way down to the ankle or the toes or the floor if that doesn't hurt too much. All right, listen to that body, never force it into pain, and focus on the breathing. Deep breaths in here, deep breaths out. And again, a deep breath in, deep breaths out. And we'll take one final deep breath in. It's a slow exhale as we come back up to the top. Take your time. Slow, slow, slow. We'll step back with that foot in the front, and then we'll just alternate to the other foot there. Focus on that flexation, curling as best you can, focusing as best you can, as much as you can without forcing into pain. Slight bend in that back knee to help with blood circulation. Never trying to lock out our legs completely for too long. All right, listen to that body. Breathe through it. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. and tuck in that chin to the chest, wherever you feel better. And we'll take one more deep breath all the way in first. Slow exhale as we come back up to the top. Slow, slow, slow. Take your time. Both feet can come back in here. All right. And then we're going to have our feet again, once more hips width apart. You can even reach down all the way back to the toes again. And if you can't quite touch the toes for this next one, you want to bend your legs until you can. So if you can't still quite touch your toes, even with your legs bent, just go as far down as you can, or maybe even hold on to the edge of the mat. All right, wherever you can hold on to, you want to hold on to something, because this next one is going to be really good for the hamstrings. It's called elephant walks or elephant marches, one of my favorite hamstring warm-up mobility stretches. And so from here, we're just going to straighten out the legs as best we can and then bend them back down. Straighten them out, bend them back down. Flexion to extension without letting go of the toes or the mat or some blocks. If you have something at a higher elevation you can hold on to. Now if this is too easy, you can keep one leg flexed the entire time and then extend one at a time. Extend and then flex and alternate each leg after the other. Showing from the side here. Flexion to extension. Both of them together. And if that's too easy, one at a time. Beautiful. Now we're not going to stand all the way up from here. We're just going to let go of the toes, come up until the hands get about knee or shin height. And then we're going to fold the hands on top of each other, tuck in the chin to the chest, let the arms pull the body down. Slight bend in the knees. We can hold this here if you'd like to, or we can swing it and sway side to side. All right. I should have said sway it, not swing it. We're not swinging, although that can be a decent stretch as well. But we're swaying side to side, nice and slow. Keeping the chin tucked into the chest, going as slow as you can. Breathing through it. Slower you go, the better here. Nice and slowly, when you're ready, we're going to come back to the center. We're going to elongate those arms back out. We're taking a deep breath in first. And then slowly exhaling as we stand ourselves all the way back up to the top. Slow, slow, slow. Take your time. Moving up from the hamstrings, we're going to open up those inner thighs, outer thighs again. We're going to go back out into a nice wide stance here. Wide as you can, go without doing the splits on me. All right, 1 foot, we're gonna start with our feet pointing forward as best you can. It doesn't have to be perfect, but 1 foot is going to pivot out to the side. That's the leg that we're gonna be bending. One leg flexed, one leg straight. If this is as far as you can go, just kind of staying up here. You can hold this. Lunge holds are super underrated. Really good for stabilizing your little tendons and ligaments we tend to forget about, and the knees and the hips. All right, you can just hold this. You can pulse back and forth, adding a little bounding range of motion, or we can reach all the way down. If you can't, that's okay. You can bound as far as you can at a solid range of motion, or you can go all the way down, and even that leg that's straight on that side, that toe can go up onto the heel. Cossack lunge. Point the toe up to the sky. If you'd like, you can add some external, internal rotation. That's not easy. That's a little advanced there. If you want to take that up a step, you can even rotate from the side lunge to a front lunge. That's pretty advanced there. All right, so if that rotation's too much, side lunge to front lunge, you stick with one of those previous options. Whether you're holding or you're bounding, up to you. Listen to that body, breathe through it. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. And it's a nice and slow transition as we come back up to the top. Don't stand up too fast. Take your time as you transition. We pivot the feet first, and then again, mimic the moves you did last time around. If this is where you held it last time, you hold it here again. Maybe you added a pulse, or maybe you just held wherever you feel better. Maybe you did a little bit of a bigger range of motion, or just held a deeper side lunge. Or maybe you went all the way down into that Cossack lunge. Find the challenge that's right for you. Challenge is key. It doesn't challenge you, doesn't change you. All right, we gotta not limit our challenges, but we gotta challenge our limits. And again, optional rotation. Side lunge to front lunge. Open up those hips. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. Never forcing it into pain. And we'll take one big deep breath all the way in first. Slow exhale as we come back up to the top. Slow, slow, slow. Take your time. This next one, still very similar to the side lunges. We're just gonna add a little bit of shoulder strengthening into it as well. Hands are gonna come up, parallel with the shoulders. Both palms will be facing up, but one palm's facing up, rotated forward. One palm's facing up, rotated backward. And the palm that's facing up, rotated forward, that's the side we're gonna start to lean towards first. So again, still pivoting one foot out to that side. Not only you can go into the side lunge, you can also drop the ear to the shoulder, rest the head on the arm there, keeping the hands up. Optional hold, or you can pulse and bound here. And if you'd like to stay on this side for about 30 seconds, you can stay 30 to 90 seconds here. Or you can transition side to side by flipping your palms over, pivoting the feet, and then dropping down to the other side, ear to shoulder. You can go all the way down if you'd like to, but you don't have to. Side to side, only going as far down as you can without forcing it. Listen to that body. You can go slow, or you can kind of go a little faster if you'd like to. Again, it's all about finding the pace that's right for you. And just like that, we'll come back up to the top, walk those feet back in to hips width apart. Moving up to the back again. A lot of stuff we can do for the back. Not a lot of it is standing though, but the few standing moves I got for the back, I'll try to show you today here. This one, we're gonna use our imagination here. Imagination's key. Feet are gonna be hips width apart, eyes are gonna be closed, and I want you to imagine what it's like to be a blade of grass. Yeah, a blade of grass. You heard me. I'm sure if we're a blade of grass somewhere in the world, there must be some type of breeze going on, whether it's a gentle, calm breeze blowing you in the wind, side to side, or maybe it's a stormy day out and the wind's howling. Maybe it's a hurricane and you're really just going for the ride here, side to side, up to you, rotating that spine out. Nothing too fast or too violent. Listen to that body, start slow and then maybe speed it up if you'd like to. This is level one. If level one feels good, stay here. This is my favorite level. But if you want to take the range of motion of the step, level two, you can take one arm and just opposite hand, opposite shoulder, give that shoulder a gentle push. That's level 2. It gives you a little extra pressure to the stretch, a little extra range of motion. If level 2 feels good, take it up to level 3 then. Level 3, that arm that's kind of just flying back, not doing much, it can fold in to the low or mid back area. All right, showing you from the side here. All right, that's level 3. Level 4, final step. If you'd like to, you can add a pivot to it. All right, if I turn to the left, I pivot my right foot. If I turn to the right, I pivot my left foot. All right, and neck is a part of the spine, so with level 4, my eyes want to either look over the shoulder or look all the way to the opposite heel. So if I'm turning to the right, I'm looking towards my left heel. If I turn to the left, I'm looking towards my right heel to maximize that range of motion. This is a very famous mobility move for the spine from a philosophy or a school of movement called Qigong. Up to you. If this feels good, stick with the level 4. If it's too much, maybe take it back down to level 3. All right. If you're on level 3, maybe take it back down to level 2. I just like to work my way back down one step at a time. If we're on level 2, taking it back down to level 1. And I want you to be more like the skies, because after every storm, the skies always find a way to clear themselves. So maybe you were in a hurricane, a rainy season of your life. Just remember, nothing lasts forever. Even the bad days will pass. So slowly but surely, finding a way to clear yourself, trying to find a way back to the stillness, one swing, one rotation at a time, calming down, finding that peace and quiet and stillness back in the center of your very being. Beautiful. All right, moving up to the chest. Opening up the chest here, we're going to interlock the hands behind the back, and then we're going to pull those shoulders down. Hyperextending the back a little bit. The back can concave. Deep breaths in to that chest cavity. You can even go eyes to sky or keep that chin to tucked into the chest if you'd like. Pulling that chest down as best you can, breathing into it. Instead of pulling more, I want you to breathe more. Really focus on deep breaths in. And using the imagination once more to imagine that breath coming into the body, traveling into the part of the body that you're stretching out. Utilize that imagination. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out, and then go ahead and relax those arms again. And then we're gonna hit the upper back here by interlocking the hands, pushing the palms away, tucking the chin into the chest. And like I said, instead of pushing further forward, which you could also do as long as it doesn't hurt, we really want to focus on inhaling deeply as we can, but especially exhaling as deep as we can, if not even deeper on the exhales. You'll notice the stretch opens up more the more you exhale. So deep inhales, but even deeper exhales if possible. One more time, deep breath in, deep breath out. And this next deep breath in, we're going to take it as the hands come up overhead. Exhale as we lean down towards the side, all the way out. Inhale back to the top. Exhale all the way out to the side. One last inhale to the top. All the way in. Exhale, let it go. Now this final back stretch while we're standing can be either upper, mid, or lower, depending on how far into the stretch you go. The trick is to interlock the hands once again. Straighten out the arms, but don't lock them out. Try to keep a slight bend in the elbows. And then from here, we're gonna imagine, we're gonna actually pull the hands apart as much as we can. Pull, 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 as much pressure as you can without hurting yourself. Where if you were to let go, it would look like this. All right, that's how much pressure you should be using to pull apart your hands without letting them go. That's gonna allow you to get a deeper stretch here. So as we engage our muscles to pull the hands apart, we bend the knees slightly and then hinge down. All right, as we're pulling apart. If you stop at the knees, the pressure is gonna stay in the upper back, the cervical spine. If you go past that to the knees, you meet the thoracic spine, the mid back, and then the lower you go, you start to hit the lumbar spine and the lower back. Wherever you feel better, keep pulling apart. Pull, pull, pull. Now with this stretch, we can add a swing. If you want to add a swing, you can come up like a golf swing almost, side to side, while you pull apart. If that's too much, stick with just holding that center. Good, the swing's great for hitting those lats, anterior and posterior serratus. Deep breaths in, slow exhale as we come back up to the top. Slow, 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 take your time. And then we're moving back up to the traps and the shoulders and the triceps. We're going to take our right hand, gently pull that elbow down as best you can. If this feels good, you can hold it here, or we can go left foot over right, lean down towards the left side. Now, if that's too hard, stay up at the top. But if this is too easy, you can also reach for those hands behind the back. That's a little advanced, but same thing, you can go left foot over right, lean down towards that left side as best you can. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. We'll take a deep breath in as we come back up to the top. And go ahead and switch to the other side, pulling that elbow down as best you can. If it's your left elbow you're pulling down, it's going to be right foot over left, leaning down towards the right side. Or of course, if that's too easy, reaching for the hands in the back as best you can. Deep breaths in. Deep breaths out. And go ahead and relax those arms to the side. Maybe shake it out, shake it out, shake it out. All right. There are plenty more stretches you can do standing. Tons of stretches you can do sitting. Fortunately, I don't have any chairs with me, so I'm gonna have to make a whole new stretch video for us when we're doing chair stretches and other standing stretches. But we are going to migrate our way down onto the floor. Now, before we do this, we got a little bit of an advanced stretch here. If you can, we're gonna try it. But if not, feel free to just migrate your way to the floor for the next segment. This next stretch, we're gonna bring our feet a little bit wider than hips width apart. And we're gonna get into our deep squat here. Keep the knees wide, don't let the knees cave in. Drive through the heels. Deep squat, hands reach down. We want the triceps on the inner thighs. And once we get ourselves into this nice deep squat, sinking that butt as far down to the floor as we can, if you feel confident enough to do so, you can take your hands off the mat and push them into each other and try to push the knees out wide. Open up that groin area, all right? You can even kind of lean. If you can't get the hands off the mat, you can lean into the legs side to side, really opening up that groin area there. And if that is too easy and you're ready for the next step, we can kind of drop and pivot the knee, go into the deep squat, drop and pivot the knee. That's a little much there. If we're not ready for that, we're sticking with our basic groin stretch here. Just dropping those glutes down as far to that ground as you can, adding pressure to the outside of the legs as best you can. Maybe dipping down a little bit with the knee, moving one hand off out of the way as you go for the dip. Get the abductor muscle there. And then from here, we're just going to drop one leg back at a time and allow ourselves to relax onto that floor. All the way down into our seated position here. Let's take a moment, recover our breath, sitting up nice and tall. And we're going to go back to our breathing here. Just like in the beginning. We're going to take a deep breath all the way in, all the way out. We're going to do that 3 more times. Each time we do it, we're going to go a little bit slower than the time before. And again, try not to pause in between your breaths, having them flow into each other like the ocean waves, ebbing and flowing. Deep breath in, deep breath out. 2 more times here, just a tad bit slower. Go ahead and recover that breath. And now we're going to fold our legs crisscross applesauce. It's okay if the knees can't quite touch the ground. We're just going to try our best to get nice and comfortable as best we can and get into our seated big rotations here. Nice and slow. I like to exhale on the way forward, inhale on the way back. Going at your own pace. Take your time. Focus on that breath. And just like that, go ahead and switch directions. Same thing other way. Beautiful. Now with our legs staying folded for a little bit longer here, we're going to take one or both of our hands, I should say, and walk our hands as far forward as we possibly can. Inching 1 inch at a time, as far as you can. Once the hands finally reach that zenith point as far as you can just kind of drop the chin, tucking the chin into the chest, and sinking the armpits down into the floor. Trying to keep if you want to relax the elbows, you can, but I like to keep my elbows off the floor and just focus on sinking the armpits down into the floor to maximize that stretch into the thoracic spine. Deep breaths in, but with each exhale, feel yourself sinking further down and inching further forward. And one hand at a time, we're going to walk ourselves all the way back up to the top, nice and slow. Take your time. And the next one's the same thing we just did with one difference. I'll turn myself around so you guys can see this a little bit better. It's the same thing we just did, but instead of walking the hands forward, we're going to walk the hands back. Just keep in mind, if you ever get any cramps or pinches or pains in the shoulders or upper back muscles, you can bring the hands wider. You don't want to go too wide, but the wider you go, the less pressure you're going to add into the stretch. One hand at a time, we're going to walk those hands back, keeping a slight bend in the elbows. Don't lock out those arms completely. Not only that can put a lot of pain onto the elbows, but it also cuts off the flow of blood circulating through the body. So maintaining that slight flexion in the elbow. And we can hold this here if you'd like to, or we can increase the stretch by supinating the arm. If you don't know, supination, pronation. Think of soup. When we supinate, we hold up the bowl of soup. And so when you rotate that thumb out, while your palms are pancake flat onto the floor and you supinate those arms, you maximize that stretch into the bicep. You can also pronate as well, wherever you feel better, focusing on rotating the shoulders back or the elbows in and out while keeping the hands pancake flat onto the floor to maximize the stretch into the bicep. Another option is you can also raise your chest and your chin up to the sky, concaving the back in a little bit, going into almost an anterior tilt in the pelvis to stretch out the spine here as well. If that's too much, keeping the chest and the rib cage down and that posterior tilt with the low back tucked. Whatever you decide to do, try not to shrug the shoulders into the ears. Keep pushing into the floor, keep the shoulders away from the ears. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out, relaxed and depressed shoulders. And if you raise your chin and your chest, you're going to slowly bring them back down to the floor and then slowly walk the hands back up as best you can. Next, we're going to elongate those legs out in front of us. I always say it's easier to reach for the toes when they're flexed. Let's try to reach for the toes when they're extended. If you can't quite touch those toes, reach for the shins or the ankles or wherever as far as you can go. If you don't like to hold it, you can bound. I like to bound. And if I'm bounding, I want to exhale on the way forward, squeezing that diaphragm in on the way forward to shorten that stomach and get that little bit extra range of motion. Whether you're doing mini pulses or big range of motion bounding, find that range of motion, find that rhythm that's right for you. Going at your own pace, breathing through it, utilize that breath. Beautiful. Just like that, we're gonna come back up to the top, stand up nice and tall. This time we're gonna flex both feet, really focus on that flexation again. Flexing as best you can, curling those toes. One foot's gonna go on top of the other. And if this feels good, you can just hold this here. You can also toss in a reach as well. But if you feel like you're just shy of that big toe, you can use one hand behind the hip to push you forward and help you reach for the toes on the top. Now, if that feels good, you can hold this there, or you can go for some external, internal rotation to stretch out the meniscus and the muscles surrounding the knee a little bit more. All right, up to you. You can even use your hand to push those toes side to side if you can reach and do that. That's a little advanced there. Doesn't take much. Focus on that breath. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. And it's just a slow transition to that other side. Same thing, other foot on top. Focusing on that flexation as best you can. Optional reach. If it's too much, just holding it. Optional external, internal rotation, side to side. Listen to that body. And rest. Go ahead and drop both those feet back to the floor. We're going to shift our focus to the mid-back once more. This time we're going to focus on the right leg, Right leg is going to step and cross over the left, trying to get the foot pancake flat on the floor, somewhere around the knee height, whether it's a little higher or lower, wherever you feel more comfortable, as long as that foot can be pancake flat onto the floor. So right leg just stepped over. Now we turn our entire body towards the right, getting our left arm over our right leg, and then pushing the left tricep into the right quadricep. Pushing as much as you can with gentle pressure, and then looking over the right shoulder. Neck is a part of the spine, just keep the shoulder relaxed, depressed away from the ear, and as best you can, breathe through it. Now, if this is easy and you feel good here, you can go up to this next step. It's a little advanced, but you can actually fold that left heel into the right hip. That's again, a little advanced there. If that's too much, keep that left leg straight. And I'll kind of turn here, give you another angle of it. All right, so again, it's optional, folding that left heel to that right hip. Adding as much pressure into that stretch as you'd like to. Relax the shoulders and just breathe. And when you're ready, and only when you're ready, we're going to slowly transition to that other side. Taking your time, no rush here. It's the same thing we just did. Left leg's turn to step over that right leg. As we get that right arm over the left, pushing that right tricep into the left quadricep, relaxing the shoulders, looking over that left shoulder if you can, and optionally folding that right leg, right heel to left hip. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. And we're going to take one more deep breath in. When you're ready, slow exhale as we uncoil ourselves back to that starting position. Again, taking your time on those transitions. All right, shifting that focus back onto the right leg. This time, we're going to fold the right leg into almost like a pretzel, half pretzel, or figure four position here. Trying to get that right ankle above the left knee. Don't rest it on top of the knee. Either below the knee or above the knee as best you can. Now, being in this position can be a stretch in and of itself. If it is, just kind of holding this here, all right? And if this feels good, just kind of rest here. But if you want more out of it, it's not too bad here. We can flex that left leg. Flexing it, the more you flex it, the deeper the pressure and the stretch is going to be. If it's too much, just go ahead and extend it back out. All right, so flex it as much as you'd like. If that feels good, you can even push yourself forward into the leg. Not too much, don't force it. But if you'd like to, you can either push yourself or you can pull your leg. And if you're hugging the leg, you let the left leg relax. You give it a nice big hug. Don't force it. Don't try to hurt yourself. But you can hold this here. If that feels good, just hold this. Or if it's your right leg in your hand, you can rotate towards the right. And you can even kind of like push and pull it at the same time. And then hold it here. Or we can go back and forth. One of my favorite hip mobility stretches, as well as for the sciatica and the low back. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. Holding or moving. Get the stretch that's right for you, or staying at that previous option that's a little less advanced. And then when you're ready, we're going to slowly relax that leg back down. And we're going to slowly transition to the left leg now, focusing on the same thing, other leg, left leg, getting the left ankle above the right knee. This feels good, just hold this here. Balance is key. We mimicking the moves we did on the side before, whether we added that slight flexion or maximize that flexion in the left leg. We're going to do that on the right leg this time. Maybe you started by just pushing yourself into that leg and holding it there. And if that's where you feel good, you just hold that there. Try to relax the shoulders away from the ears. Or maybe you went right into hugging that leg as best you can, adding rotation or no rotation, wherever you feel better. Whatever you decide to do, focus on the breath. And it's a very slow transition as we relax that left leg back down and elongate it back out. Take your time. One more time, shifting that focus once more on the right leg here. Instead of folding the leg on top, we're going to sweep the right leg underneath as best you can. Trying to get your knees semi together as best as possible. It doesn't have to be perfect. The real focus is not the bottom leg. It doesn't matter if you're a little obtuse or a little acute, all right, in that angle there. I try to stay with the 90-degree or 45-degree angles. Don't have to take out a protractor and try to measure it. Doesn't have to be perfect. But the real focus is on that top leg. The more of a stretch you'd like, the more intense of a stretch you'd like, you want to focus on that flexation in the Achilles of the left foot there. Flex, flex, flex. If it gets too much throughout the stretch, just extend it back out. All right, that's just the beginning. The real step is to take a deep breath in as the hands come up overhead. Not only the hands are up overhead, but they're reaching up. And don't let the hands at any point in time throughout the stretch fall forward. We're reaching up and we're keeping the hands up. Deep breath in. And then exhale as we just drop the chest forward without dropping the hands forward. You only drop the chest forward as far as you can without forcing it. If it gets too much, that foot can be extended. That will allow you to go even further. But if you don't want to, you want to focus on that flexation, keep curling as best you can. We breathe here for 3 breaths. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. Really focus on that reaching as best you can. One more time, deep breath all the way in, deep breath all the way out. This next time, we're going to take a deep breath in as we rise up to the top. Slow exhale out to the side. And it's the same exact thing we just did on that other leg. All right, so left leg is going to sweep underneath that right leg as best you can. All right, doesn't have to be perfect. Listen to that body wherever you feel more comfortable, as long as those knees are relatively close to each other. And we're going to take our deep breath all the way in as the hands go overhead. Exhale, dropping the chest to the knees as best you can without forcing into pain. And just breathe. Now we're going to take a deep breath in as we rise back up to the top. Exhale out to the side. And go ahead and elongate both those legs back out in front of us. Woo! All right, hope you guys are still feeling good because we're just getting started. Big stretch video today. We're just going to go out nice and wide, big wide stance, as wide as you can go without forcing it as best you can. All right, and from here we're going to get a little slight bend in those knees. All right, slight bend in the knees, 45-degree angle just about. And then we're just going to drop those knees down to the side. If you want to, you can get the hip off the floor and focus on driving those hips towards the direction you just dropped your knees into. You can hold this, I'll tell you when to switch halfway, or you can go side to side at your own pace. All right, of course, if you still want to focus on the mobility section, you got side to side at your own pace. If you want to switch into the flexibility option, just focus on holds instead. Now you can also take it up a step if you'd like to. All right, this is optional. I'll show you from the side view here. We can drop down to our forearm and then reach past that forearm as far as you can. And just kind of tuck in the chin to the chest. And hold this here. Now, if you're moving side to side, keep moving side to side at your own pace. You can even do that fancy reach side to side at your own pace still if you'd like to. Just dropping down to the forearm, that's the extra step. And reaching past as best you can. All right, to add some extra mobility to it. And if you're holding nice and slowly, you can go ahead and start to switch to the opposite side. Take your time as you transition. Remember, if you want to just stay up at the top, just stay up at the top. If this feels good, dropping down to that forearm is just too much, stay up at the top. And just focus on driving those hips in the direction you drop the knees in. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. Just a few more moments here. Rest if you need to. Nice and slowly, when you're ready, we're going to slowly start to transition ourselves all the way back up to the top. Back into that starting position with the wide legs, slight bend in the knees. And this time we're going to drop both the knees down to the right side. Dropping those knees down to the right side. Focusing on the angle of the legs is now important in this stretch. We want to make sure we can maintain that 90-degree angle. Like I said, if it's a little obtuse or a little acute, that's okay. Doesn't have to be perfect, all right? So 90-degree angle in the legs as best you can. We're going to fold our arms on top of each other, almost creating this rectangle. And then we're going to drop the shoulder, the right shoulder, towards the right knee as far as you can go without forcing into pain. If this is as far as you can go, that's okay. You can come back and forth here, or you could go all the way down, right shoulder to the right knee. If that feels good, you can hold it there. You can even add a reach and drop the right ear to the right shoulder. If that feels good, just hold that there. Maybe you want to focus on more mobility though. If you do, you can even lean to the left side a little bit. That's a little intense for that left hip and the knee. You're stretching out that muscle called the sartorius, which reaches all the way from the outer hip to the through the inner thigh to that inner knee. All right, so up to you if you want to lean down to that left side there. If you're at the top here, you can even add some rotation. Rotating to the right, rotating to the left, back and forth. Lots of options here. Get the stretch that's right for you. And whether you're holding or you're moving, we're going to slowly come back up to the top. Still keeping the knees to the right side, drop down to the right side. This next stretch, the wider the knee is from the right heel, all right, this left knee, the more of a stretch you're gonna get into the hip. The closer this left knee is to that right heel, the more you're gonna get a stretch into the sartorius and the knee itself. All right, so what we're not doing here, we're not taking our left hand underneath our left ankle and yanking this leg up. We're gently pulling it up. And we can even do it without the hands, which will allow us to strengthen the muscles more because we're not using any assistance. We're just trying to activate those adductor muscles and the hip flexor muscles on the outer thigh there. Now, if you'd like to add that gentle pressure, again, you gotta play around with the distance the knee is from the heel. Maybe you keep it close to the heel, maybe you keep it far away. But there's one more thing we can do to increase the pressure to the stretch no matter what distance the distance is, and that's if we lean into it. If we lean forward, we're gonna increase the stretch into the low back area, or we can lean away from it. Both are great options. Changing the direction you lean in, whether you lean towards the right more, or lean towards the left more, will kind of switch and change little intricate muscles that we focus on. So it's wherever you feel better, whatever you decide to do, whether you're holding it or you're moving it back and forth, focus on that breathing as always. Breathe through it. And we don't hold that one for too long. Just like that, we're gonna relax that foot back down to the floor. Last stretch while we're on this side. The origin of the motion starts in the knee. We're gonna get the knee off the floor first, followed by the heel, and then we're gonna try to get the heels to touch each other. And then we're gonna bring it back. And we're gonna try to push that knee all the way to that left side as best we can. So it's knee up first, then heels. And if you'd like to, instead of the heel stopping at the heel, you can bring the heel all the way to the knee and then come back for a little extra range of motion. And that's not all, folks. We can even bring the heel to the knee and then push that knee down to the heel. That's pretty advanced there, all right? If that's too much, stick with one of those previous options. If just getting the knee up is a challenge, we can just work on adducting that knee. All right, back and forth. We're just stopping at the heel, we're stopping at the knee. Find that range of motion that's right for you. Going at your own pace. And nice and slowly, we get to do everything we just did on the other side. So take your time as you transition those knees all the way to that opposite side, dropping them down to the left side this time. All right, we start by getting the angle right and our 90-degree angle on our legs as best we can, folding our hands on top of each other, then dropping that left shoulder to that left knee. If this is as far as you can go, that's okay. You can go back and forth here, maybe dip down to the right a little bit, and then go down again. Or you can go all the way down, left shoulder to left knee. You can toss up a reach if you'd like. Left ear to left shoulder, deep breaths in. Really not just tossing up a reach for reach's sake, but really reaching with that hand. Focus on that reach. Open up the serratus, anterior and posterior. Open up the obliques and the lats as best you can with your breath. Also, don't forget you have your rotation. If that rotation feels good, stick with that. Beginner-friendly option there. Really focus on feeling it in the hips. adding that pressure where you feel it the most. Use that imagination. The breath travels in, down the esophagus, down into the diaphragm, and into the parts of the body you're stretching out the most. And when you're ready, and only when you're ready, we're going to come back up to the top, and we're going to focus on finding that angle we had last time, whether that knee is far away from that heel or close to the heel. We can again remember just doing it without our hands, heel up and then back down, working on that hip, or you can take our hands, apply that gentle pressure with mobility back and forth, or just holding it. Whether we lean or not, find that angle. Leaning away, leaning towards it, leaning forward, leaning back. Find that angle that feels best. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. Keep the shoulders relaxed. And we don't hold that for too long. Just like that, we're gonna go ahead and relax that back down. Last stretch on this side. Remember, the origin starts in the knee, knee raises, heel follows, heels can touch, and then back out for the easy version. Or I should say, the easy version is just getting that knee abducting and adducting. Feel free to just stay there if you'd like to. Keep in mind, the further that knee is away, the more you're gonna feel that in the hip there. The closer that knee is, the more you're gonna feel it, and the more range of motion you're going to have as well, and the knee and the sartorius muscle. But if you'd like to follow that heel all the way to the knee and then back for a little bit more of an advanced option, or you can follow that heel, right heel to the knee, and then push that knee, right knee down into the left foot, even leaning forward if you'd like to. It's a little advanced, guys. Remember, get in that stretch if that feels best for you. And nice and slowly, when you're ready and only when you're ready, we're gonna bring those knees back up to the top. Slow, 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 extending those legs back out wide. And then we're gonna fold one leg in. That leg that's extended, we're gonna extend that foot out, and we're gonna reach both hands towards it if you'd like to, or I can take one hand up and over. Really focus on that reach as well. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. If you'd like, you can flex the foot to add more flexion into the hamstring, or you can keep it extended to really focus on the side and the obliques. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. Get the stretch that feels best for you. take a deep breath all the way in. Slow exhale as we come back up and over. Won't hold that one for too long. Just like that, switch to the other side. Same exact thing. Other side. Take your time. Breathe through it. And it's a deep breath all the way in. Slow exhale back up and over, nice and slow. Take your time. All right. Now, my favorite part. We're gonna go ahead and elongate the legs out in front of us. Take your time as you transition yourself all the way down onto that mat. Let that body fully decompress back down onto the floor. And just like in the beginning, how we took a set of 3 breaths, we're going to take another set of 3 breaths here. All the way in, all the way out, like those ocean waves ebbing and flowing. But this time, even slower than the time in the beginning if possible. As slow, as deep, as complete, as full as a breath as you possibly can. All the way in. All the way out. With each exhale sinking further and further into that floor. Focusing on especially sinking the low back into the floor. Almost as if there's a marble in between your back and the mat, and you want to crush that marble with your low back. Almost like there's a weight on you and you're being pushed into the floor deeper and deeper with each exhale. Once you've taken your set of 3 breaths, go ahead and recover that breath. Relax the body. Maybe close the eyes just for a moment. When you're ready, the first move we're going to work on are supine hip rotations. One of my favorite hip stretches of all time. The key though is the focus on driving that low back into the floor. If we let the leg pull the low back off the floor, it's not going to necessarily hurt us, but it will take away from the stretch that we could have gotten in our hip. So supine hip rotations, 1 leg at a time, and we alternate legs each time. You got a couple options though. Option 1, start by bringing the knee up to the chest as much as you can, and then abducting it out to the side without letting the leg pull the back off the mat. Keep that back into the floor. Even use your hands to help push and pull the hip downward so it doesn't fall. Only dropping that leg out as far as you can without having the back follow it. And then extending the leg back down. Or you can go to the reversed option. You can abduct out to the side first, adduct in, and then extend. If you'd like to do both options, which I like to do, you can do them both before you switch to the other leg. So make sure whether you do 1 or 2 of the options, both directions or just one of them, we alternate legs each time. Knee up to the chest, abduct out, extend, and then abduct back out, adduct in, all while keeping that low back pressed into the floor. That's the main, most important focus, is that low back pushing into the floor the entire time, and hell, even using those hands to prevent the hips and the back from coming off the floor if you need to. Slower you go, not just the safer of a stretch you're gonna get, but the deeper of a stretch you're gonna get. Slow and steady wins the race here, folks. Find that pace. You can go a little faster if you'd like to, if that feels good. But try to keep that breath flowing with the body. Breath flows where the body goes. Take your time here, maybe 1 or 2 more times on each side, no rush. If anything, slow it down even more. maybe just one more time on each leg. Again, take your time. These next ones are very basic, very simple, beginner-friendly knee hug. You can either hug arms over the legs or in between the legs, wherever you feel better. If this feels good, you can just hold this here. But if it feels bad, if you're on that sharp, bony part of your spine, bring your glutes, bring your hips and your butt back down into the floor until there's no more pain. You only add as much pressure into the hug as you can without forcing it into pain. If this feels good, just hold this here. But you got a lot of options here as well. We can slowly, keyword slowly, rock side to side laterally. If that feels good, just stay there. The slower you go, the better. Not just the safer stretch, but the more you're gonna massage that back out. If that's too easy though, you can pick it up in a little advanced option and rock in a circular range of motion. If you're doing your circular range of motion, I'll tell you you're gonna switch halfway. But if you want something even more advanced, instead of this basic knee hug, we can go into child's pose, grabbing the toes and driving and pulling the knees into the armpits almost. Up onto the thoracic and cervical spine. Now we're off the floor with the lumbar spine completely. Here we can even rock side to side if you'd like to, massaging that thoracic spine and the scapula out a little bit. Or we can rock in a circular range of motion as well. But that again is very advanced. Listen to that body. Never forcing it into sharp pain, not on the edges of your bones, rolling onto the muscle as best you can. And if you're doing your circular range of motion, go ahead and switch halfway. If you're holding or you're rocking, maybe just a little bit longer here. Now, if all of this is still not advanced enough for you and you want one more step, I got it for you. If this next step is too much, I'm going to have you hold this child's pose or knee hug for a little bit longer. The next step is a kickback, keeping the legs as straight as you can. Hands go on the hips or the lumbar spine. Legs stay straight, knees above eye level. As best you can, bringing the feet as close to the floor as you can without forcing it into pain. If you can't quite touch the floor, that's okay. Use the hips to push into the hands for support. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. We'll stick with our very basic kickback. There's tons of variations in this kickback. You could even go all the way up to a shoulder stand, but we're not going to get into that today. If you want to get out of this position, I'll teach you how to start. Hold this for a few more moments. I'm just going to demonstrate how to get out when you're ready. We take our hands off the hips, we place them into the floor, fingertips into the floor. This is going to help us prevent us from rolling down out of this position too fast. You want to imagine your vertebrae and your spine as one long string of pearls. And one pearl at a time, one vertebrae at a time. You're going to lay that string of pearls back onto the mat, rolling it out onto the floor. Nice and slowly, one vertebrae at a time, making contact with the floor. As slow as you can, rolling that spine back down into the floor when you're ready. And once those hips are level onto the floor, we're going to keep the feet into the sky above the knees and knees above the hips. So if you were in that knee hug, I'm going to have you come out of it now by extending the legs up into the sky. And from here, if you need to, you can bring your hands out wide and give yourself support, because what we're going to do from here is we're going to take our right leg and keep the left leg still. We're just going to take the right leg and abduct it out as far away from that left leg as it can go. Opening up those adductors as far away as you can go. If you can't quite touch the floor, that's okay. But if you can, perfect. Once you get as far away as you can, that left leg is going to follow that right leg all the way down to the right side. As best you can, without forcing it into pain. Focus on that breathing. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. Try to relax the shoulders into the floor. and relax them away from the ears. And when you're ready, and only when you're ready, that left leg's turn, keeping the right leg still this time. Left leg is going to abduct away from the right leg as far as it can, back into the neutral position, foot above the knee, knee above the hip. Nice, perfectly aligned as best you can. Once you're back in that starting position, right leg is going to follow that left leg back up to the top as slow as it can go, helping massage the back out a little bit, and then we're dropping the left leg's turn to drop out to the left side. Nice and slowly, take your time. Once you get as far down to that side as you can, that right leg can follow it. Slow, slow, slow. Take your time, no rush. Keep those shoulders relaxed onto the floor as best you can, breathe through it. And if you haven't fallen asleep on me yet, right leg is going to come back up to the top, abducting away from that left leg first. And then the left leg is going to follow it, nice and slowly. Take your time, no rush here. Once you're back up to the top, we're going to fight gravity every moment along the way by taking a deep breath in first, and then slowly exhaling as we drop the heels, both of them together, into the floor as slow as we can. Engaging the core, pressing that low back into the floor. Now, if you're doing this and you feel that low back start to tilt off the floor into an anterior tilt, just drop the feet. But if you can keep that low back onto the floor, slowly, slowly fight that gravity, engage that core, flex, flex, flex. And once those heels touch the floor, let that back fully decompress back down into that floor as best you can. And we'll just jump right into this next segment here, walking the heels into the hips until they're either a 45 or a 90-degree angle, wherever you feel more comfortable. And we're going to get back into our figure 4 half pretzel kind of position, getting the right ankle above the left knee. Now again, if this feels like a stretch in and of itself, just hold this here. But we do have a lot of options here. Option 1, you can take 1 or 2 hands and gently push that right knee away from the body. If that feels good, just hold that there. Option 2 is killing 2 birds with 1 stone, getting a little bit of a stretch in exercise for the rectus abdominis as well as a stretch for the knee and the piriformis by going into a pretzeled reverse crunch. That's going to be exploding the knees to the chest and then slowly coming back down, fighting gravity every moment along the way. Exploding on the way up, controlling on the way down, killing 2 birds with 1 stone there. Now, if you want to skip the exercise and just focus on the stretches today, we can go right back into another knee hug, but this time a pretzel knee hug, bringing the knees into the center of the chest, holding this here, or maybe you want to add another rock to it, rocking left to right as long as you're not in pain on that sharp part of your spine. All right, feel free to add that rock, or instead of rocking, we can reach through our leg, grab our left hamstring with both hands, extend the left foot, and then flex and extend that left Achilles there. That's how you maximize the stretch into the hamstring, especially 2 out of the 4 hamstring muscles. We're focusing on the semimembranosus and the semitendinosus right now. Focus on that breath nonetheless. Lots and lots of options here. Find the option that feels best for you. And just like that, we're going to bring that left foot back down into the floor. We're not switching sides quite yet. I still got 2 more stretches to share with you while we're still keeping the right ankle above the left knee. This time we're going to take our left knee while keeping the right ankle above the left knee just like it is. We're gonna drop that left knee down to the left side, trying to get that right foot pancake flat onto the floor as best as it can without letting go of that left knee. All right, now if this feels good, just hold this here. The key is to not let the legs pull the hip off the floor. Keep that right hip driving not only down into the floor, but away from the knee and the foot. All right, so as best you can, focus on the hip and the pelvis tilting down into the floor to maximize the stretch. Now you can just hold this here, but you got a few options here as well. You can either take your left hand and then pull that left knee down to the floor as well, or you can push that left knee. You can hold that, or you can push and pull. Especially if you're pushing, try not to get the foot off the floor. Try to keep that foot pancake flat on the floor as best you can to really stretch out that knee maximally. Now, final option, if you're not a big fan of the push and pull, you can drop your hands out into a T shape, hands parallel with the shoulders, and then the left hand, left shoulder stays on the floor, but the right hand and right shoulder reaches off the floor, past the left hand. And this, again, is very important to not let the hip be pulled by the reach. Keep driving the hips away from the hand that's reaching. All right, to maximize that stretch, you can hold the reach, or you can return the right hand and the right shoulder back down to the floor, eyes follow that right hand next to part of the spine, and you can add some mobility in a little T rotation thoracic spine stretch here. Holding or moving, get the stretch that's right for you. Whatever you decide to do, breathe through it. Now, if you're holding or you're reaching, you're gonna return that right shoulder, right hand back down to the floor first. And then we're gonna lift that left knee back up to the top, slow, slow, slow. And this time we're gonna do the exact same thing we just did, but dropping it down to the opposite side. Using the right foot this time on top, right foot to pull the left knee down to the right side. Don't force it down, listen to that body, gentle pressure, gentle, pulling that left knee with the right foot, pulling that left knee down to the floor as best you can. If this feels good, just hold this here. Now this time, we want to push the hip into the direction that our knees just fell into, driving the hips forward to open up the iliac and the pelvis a little bit more. If that feels good, just kind of hold that there. If you want to, you can take your left hand and pull that left foot up to the hip to add a little bit more stretch into the sartorius and the knee. If that's too painful though, keep that left foot a little bit further away from the hip in that starting position. Wherever you feel better, whatever you decide to do, lots of options, just focus on that breathing. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. Relax the shoulders away from the ears. To get out of this, I'm going to take my right foot off my knee first, and then my knees are going to come back up to the top. Shake them out if you need to a little bit. All right, a little bit of flexion extension if you need to. All right, and then we get to do exactly what we just did, all on that side, on our other side. This time, left ankle above the right knee. But remember, we got to do balance here. Balance is key. All right, so whatever moves you did last time, try to mimic those moves this time. Maybe you just held this the entire time. Maybe that felt good. Maybe you took one or two hands and gently pushed that left knee away for a little bit to start. Priming the hip, priming the knee. Or maybe you just jumped right into your reverse crunch, exploding the knees up to the chest, controlling on the way down. Exploding on the way up, controlling on the way down. All right, maybe you did the reverse crunch for a little bit. Maybe you were tired of exercise for the day and you just went right into your knee hug. Just held the knee hug as long as it wasn't on that sharp part of your spine. Alright, if it was, try to play around with shifting the weight around a little bit, relaxing the shoulders away from the ears a little bit more. Maybe you added the rock left to right because you felt no pain, you wanted more of the stretch there. Or maybe you skip that altogether and you reach through your legs, grab the right hamstring this time with both hands, extended the right leg, and then flexed and extended the right ankle. You can even draw circles here as well, but I like to just go flexion extension for this stretch to maximize that stretch into the hamstrings as best you can. Whatever you decide to do, focusing on that breath. Just holding this for a little bit longer here. Rest when you need to. And then nice and slowly bring that right foot back down into the floor. Slow, 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 trying to get that angle, either 45 or 90-degree angle, wherever you feel better. Dropping the right knee down to the right side, trying to get that left foot pancake flat onto that right side as best you can, pancake flat onto the floor. Now again, don't let the hips follow the knees, drive the hips away from the knees towards the left and down towards the floor. Optional, pulling that left knee to the floor with the right hand or pushing that left knee away from the body as long as you keep the floor on the flat on the floor, the foot flat on the floor. You can push and pull, you can hold one or the other, or you can drop the hands out into a T-shape, T-bar, hands parallel with the shoulders, right hand, right shoulder stays into the floor, left hand, left shoulder reaches past the right hand, past as far as you can. You can hold that there, eyes follow the hand, or you can go side to side with a little extra thoracic rotation. At your own pace, listen to that body, breathe through it, whatever you decide to do. Now whether you're holding that reach or you're moving, we're going to slowly bring that left hand, left shoulder back down into the floor first. And then we're going to get that right knee all the way back up to the top so that we can do the same thing we just did on the opposite side. Dropping that right knee down to the left side, using that left foot on top to pull that right knee down to the side there. As best you can, driving the hips towards the left. This time to maximize that stretch into the iliac, into the QL, into the erector spinae. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. If you'd like to, you can take your right hand, pull the right heel up to the hip to maximize the stretch into the knee. If that's too much though, stick with that right foot a little bit further away from the hip, wherever you feel better. Whatever you decide to do, again, I don't even need to say it anymore. Focus on that breath. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. again, to get out of this, we're going to take that left foot off the knee first, and then slowly, slowly, slowly bring those knees back up to the top, and then we're going to extend those legs back out. Slow, slow, slow. Take your time. Now this next one is one of my favorite stretches of all time. It's called the K stretch. It starts with the left arm dropping out to the side, palm facing the sky. If you have no room out to your left, you can also drop it above your head, but I like to go out to the side, parallel with the shoulder. Now, left leg is going to come up straight until the ankle gets above the hip, and then we're going to drop that left leg, keyword slowly, down to the right side. You only go as far down as you can without letting the left shoulder and the left hand come off the floor. If this feels good, you hold it here. If you want to come all the way down, you can. To maximize your torque in your torso, you're going to bend that left knee and then pull that left knee down to the floor with your right hand. Now, if coming up with a straight leg hurts, you can also start with coming up with a bent leg, almost like a single leg knee hug, and then take your left knee and pull it down to the floor with the right hand from that position if the straight leg is too much for the low back there. Wherever you feel better. Now if this feels good, we hold this here. If you want something more out of it, it can be a little advanced, but we temporarily bring our left hand and left shoulder off the floor so that we can reach to grab our right foot. And then we return the left shoulder to the floor and then pull. Now that I have a hand on both my legs, we can pull the legs apart from each other, driving the hips forward towards the right, and that's going to maximize the stretching for the right quadricep as well. That's a little advanced. If that's too much, stick with that left arm out to the left side. Whatever you decide to do, we breathe and we relax the shoulders away from the ears. Never force it. We're going to hold this for a little bit longer here. Focus on that breathing. Rest when you need to. Now, if you grab that right foot, go ahead and let it go as the left arm goes back out to the left. I'm going to have you take a deep breath all the way in as you extend the left leg, and then slowly exhale as you bring it all the way back up to the top. Unless bringing it up straight or bringing it down straight last time hurt, then just keep it bent as you bring it up. And then slowly exhale as you bring that leg back down to the floor. Once that leg is back into that starting position, reset. Take a moment to reset, let your body relax back down into that floor. And then when you're ready, it's right arm's turn to drop out to the right side, palm facing the sky. Bring that right leg up, either straight or bent, and then dropping that leg down to the left side. Remember, if you bend that right leg and pull that right knee down to the floor with the left hand, you'll allow yourself to get a little bit more torque in that torso. That's optional though. Wherever you feel better, never forcing it. But really take it up a step though. You're gonna temporarily bring that right shoulder off the floor, grabbing that left foot with the right hand, and then returning the shoulder to the floor. You only do this as long as you can return the shoulder to the floor. If you can't, it might be a tad bit too advanced. Doesn't have to be perfect, but as best you can, return that right shoulder to the floor, pull those legs apart from each other, and then drive the hips towards that left side. Deep breaths in here. Deep breaths out. Just a few more moments here. Rest when you need to. Now if you grab that left foot, you can go ahead and relax as the right arm goes back out to the right, palm facing the sky. Take a deep breath all the way in as you extend that right leg back out. Slowly exhale, slow, 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 as you bring that right leg back up to the top. Once those hips are level onto that floor, then you can bring that right leg back down nice and slowly. Take your time, no rush here. And then we're going to transition out of supine position, and we're going to roll over onto our sides. Take your time as you transition onto the sides. We're going to start with one of my favorite low back stretches for instant low back pain relief. Not really sure of the name of it, so I just call it the French model stretch because it looks like you're in a French model position. Shout out to AthleanX for showing me this stretch, but we're here in this French model position. We want to take a moment to align ourselves, meaning ankles under knees, knees under hips, hips under elbow, and we want a nice straight line down that kinetic chain as best you can. All right, so from here, we want to get into our French model position. That means one hand on the head like a pillow, and the other hand, there's a little bony part of your low back right above your hips, right above those glutes. Right there, that's where we want our hand, because throughout this stretch, those hips are going to want to fall back. And it's this hand's job not to push the hips forward, but to prevent the hips from falling back. Ideally, we want our hips to be nice and stacked on top of each other. All right, so use that hand for some gentle support. And then the only thing we're moving is this top leg. This stretch can be a little advanced. The hardest part of the stretch is to keep the toe pointed down the entire time. Already you should start to feel your low back engage. All right, that's the hardest part of the stretch. Trying not to let that toe pop up for any reason. Keeping that toe pop down, because if it's up, we're targeting our glutes on our low back. It's not going to hurt us, but we want the pressure here on the low back. So keep the toes pointed down. Step one, we go as slow as we can, kicking back first. Step two, while maintaining the kicked back position, leg lift. So on that lift, don't come forward. Try to keep it back. And then after you lift, you go for a knee drive. Knee falls right in front of the hip, in front of your hip, just like that, right into the floor. All right, the entire time pointing the toes down, and then we reset. We'll go for 5 today. That was 1. We kick back slowly, we lift while keeping it kicked back, and then we knee drive slowly. All right, take your time. Slow, slow, slow. No rush here. Pause the video if you need to and go at your own pace. I'm going a little fast here, so take your time. And breathe. We got one more here. Now, before we switch to the other side, we're going to do a couple more stretches on this side. All right, we're going to get into our lying quad stretch here. So we're just going to reach for the ankle on the leg on the top and pull the heel into the hip. Now, I don't want to focus on pulling the knee back. I want to keep the knees stacked on top of each other, knees under hips, and I just want to focus on pushing the hips forward. All right, driving the hips forward to open up the quad more. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. And we won't hold that one for too long. Go ahead and relax that leg back out. This last one for the side stretch, there's tons of side stretches, dozens of side stretches, if not hundreds. But I only have time to show you a few today. We're gonna prop ourselves up into the semi-side plank. I promise you it's not a side plank. We're not doing an actual side plank. But we're gonna get up onto our forearm so that our elbow is right underneath our shoulder. We're still keeping this aligned position here for a moment. All right, we're taking a moment to align ourselves. And once we prop ourselves up, the leg on top is going to go as far forward as it can go. The leg on the bottom is going to go as far back as it can go, creating this nice wide base here. Now, this might feel like a stretch in and of itself. If it is, you just hold this here. To make it a little bit more advanced, we're going to thread the needle with this top arm, crawling underneath the body. Don't let the hip fall down into the floor. Keep it away for now. All right, threading the needle, and then both arms can kind of inch away from each other, adding opposite pressure. All right, so once you thread the needle completely, you can push your arms both in opposite directions to increase the stretch into the QL, into the erector spinae, and the low back. If this feels good, you hold this here. If you want to add a little bit more rotation to the stretch, some more mobility to the stretch, that left hip there, or whatever side you're on, the hip on the top here can pivot down into the floor, dipping down, and then pivot away from the floor. Adding a little bit of a rotation. Now this one's tough if you don't have a slippery floor. It's good if you're on a hardwood floor, you can slide nice and easily on. If not, you do what you can do, whether you want to hold it with the hips at the top and just hold it here, or work on that rotation. Now, final option. After you drive your hips all the way down into the floor, that arm that didn't thread itself can also reach up to the sky, following the hand up with your eyes, and then it can reach back, and then you can get the hips back up. A lot of steps there. If that's too much, just stick with one of those basic options. Listen to that body. Try to maintain that threaded position as best you can when you come back from this reach. And we're going to give that nonsense a break. We're going to do the same thing we just did. Take a moment as you transition to your other side. Remember that first stretch we started with? French model. That's where we're going to get into on this next side. Getting that hand underneath the low back, right above the hip, or the glutes, I should say, right on the hip. Using that hand to prevent that back from falling, dipping back as support. Take a moment, align yourself, ankles under knees, under hips, under shoulders, under elbow, nice straight line. Leg on the top's the only leg that moves. We point that toe to the bottom, to the floor, the entire time as we kick back. Keep it pointed down as we leg lift. Keep it pointed down as we knee drive. Knee falls right into the floor in front of our hips. As best we can here. Take your time. Find that range of motion. Find that pace that's best for you. Going for 5. 5 to 10 is a good number. I like to do 10 on my free time. 5's good too. Wherever you feel better. We all start somewhere. We just gotta start. Keep up and you will be kept up. Going at your own pace. Slow and steady. Slow progress is better than no progress. And those are all the cliches I know. So, hope you enjoyed at least one of them. And maybe just one more here. Take your time. You do not have to go as fast as I'm going. Find that speed that's right for you. And then staying in this semi-French model stretch, we're going to jump right into our lateral quad stretch here. Keeping the knees stacked on top of each other. Just focusing on driving the hips forward as best you can. And breathe in. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. And go ahead and relax that leg, not holding that for too long. And then we're gonna kind of sit ourselves all the way up into our semi-side plank position, still aligned throughout the body, just on the forearm this time. And again, trying to thread that, or excuse me, before we thread the needle, getting into our wide base, top leg as far forward, bottom leg as far back, and then we thread that needle underneath as best we can. Feel free to just hold this, guys. We don't have to do the fancy dips here. We can just kind of hold this, tucking the chin to the chest, and just hold this here. You can add a dip if you'd like. Bringing that hip on the top down to the floor and back away. Instead of sliding your foot, you can pivot onto the heel and then onto the toes as you dip. And there's an optional reach up to the sky on the opposite side there. Following that hand with your eyes. Staying in that wide base. Instead of sliding those feet, you can just pivot with a minor slide if you'd like. Trying to keep those hands threaded as best you can. Breathe through it. And nice and slowly, when you're ready, we're gonna unthread the needle. We're gonna stack those legs back on top of each other. And I just remembered of a really important side stretch for the supinator, the shoulder mobility, and the triceps and elbow. So we're gonna get into that. We're gonna come off our forearm, falling back down, getting our elbow nice and straight across from the shoulder. We want a nice straight line here. All right, our body loves alignment. Ankles, knees, hips, shoulders, nice big line, just like a pencil. Same thing, elbow right across from the shoulder here. The key is not to get the elbow too high, too low, just right in the middle. And we want to maintain this 90-degree angle this entire time. Again, if it's a little obtuse, a little cute, that's okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. Making sure the wrist stays stacked on top of the elbow too. If you're bending the wrist one way or the other throughout this stretch, you're going too far past the range of motion you're not ready for yet. Nice in alignment, nice perfect alignment here. What we're not doing, we're not forcing the hand down, all right? That's not what we're doing. We're gently pushing the hand down as far as it can go without bending the wrist to touch that floor. Keep the wrist stacked on top of the elbow. Keep the 90-degree angle in the arm. You can hold one side and I'll tell you when to switch halfway, or you can transition at your own pace side to side. If you are noticing, you might not be able to go down on as far on one side as you can the other side. But if you do this every day, you will increase your range of motion, not just your supinator, but your rotator cuff as well. Great supinator stretch, especially if you do it on a table. You can do it sitting down. I have to make that a seated stretch video after this, but laying down, I love doing my rotation movement supinator stretch. Now if you're holding one side, same arm, just switch to the other side. If you're moving for mobility, keep it moving side to side. And it helps if you have a pillow or a block to go on your head so you're not just like leaning down here. It can be a little tedious position to be in for the neck. So wherever you feel more comfortable, we won't hold that for too long. But because I forgot about this stretch on the other side, just like that, whether you're holding or you're moving, we're gonna switch ourselves all the way to that opposite side real quick. Take a quick moment to align yourself. Remember, don't get that elbow too high or too low. All right, just right, straight line across, 90-degree angle on the elbow. Keep the wrist stacked. Gentle pressure as you push it side to side, or you hold and I'll tell you when to switch halfway. If you held last time, you hold this time. If you were moving last time, you're moving this time. Balance is key. Nice and slowly. Breathe through it. This is the supinator stretch. I'm gonna, before we get out of here, show you the pronator stretch. I forgot about that one. And if you're holding, switch to the other side. If you're moving, keep it moving side to side at your own pace. And like I said, we're not going to hold this one for too long. Just like that, we're giving the sides a break. We're going to go all the way rolling over it onto our stomachs into a prone position. Face the other way. And from here, we are going to get our hands chest level. If you can, we're going to try not to chicken wing the elbows out. We're going to try to keep those elbows tucked into the body. Now, we also want our feet extended. So if I was wearing shoes, the laces of my shoes are into the floor. Keep the shoulders relaxed away from the ears. We're gonna take a deep breath in. And then exhale as we push the body, the chest away from the floor. I recommend not extending the arms out completely, but keeping a slight bend in the elbows to maximize the blood circulating. From here, we can just hold this, but if this ever gets too much, you can drop down to the forearms to make it a little easier. Now, if you're on your forearms, we can even flex the feet here and then dip the hips side to side. We can hold it, or we can rotate side to side at our own pace. Or I can curl the legs and go eyes to sky. Now, if you're on your arms, or excuse me, straight arms, extended arms, and if you want a little bit more of a stretch, you can take your left hand, bring it to the left hip, rotate the shoulders to the left, look over that left shoulder. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. We don't hold this for too long, just like that. Deep breath in. Exhale back to the center. Right arms turn, go walk over to that right hip. Rotate the shoulders to the right, relax the shoulders from the ears. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. Same thing, deep breath in, deep breath out, and then we come back to the center just for a little bit longer here. Again, you can keep the legs straight or you can curl them wherever you feel better. I'm only gonna hold this for a few more moments here. And if your legs are curled, maybe think about starting to extend them back out. And then we're gonna take a deep breath all the way in. Slow exhale as we fight gravity every moment along the way as we come back down into the floor. Slow, 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 take your time. Keeping the hands chest level, left hand, this is going to be the antithesis of the K stretch. The left hand is going to walk all the way out to the left side. Both palms are going to be pancake flat into the floor. The left shoulder is going to push into the floor while the right shoulder pushes away from the floor. You can just hold this here. This is a great shoulder stretch. At any point in time, if you feel a sharp pinch or pain in the left elbow, feel free to move that left hand closer to the hip. That's going to take the pressure away from the elbow. But if there's no pain, keep it shoulder parallel, because then you're going to maximize the stretch into the shoulder. If you want to take this stretch into the low back, you're going to go right leg, kick it up into the sky, drop it down to the left side. Hello. And feel free to just hold that there. You can rest the head into the mat. If that feels good, you can hold this here. If you want more of a stretch into the upper back now, you can imagine like someone's grabbing your right wrist and pulling your arm back, keeping the right arm straight, trying to almost pull your hands together and squeeze the scapula and the shoulder blade together. Engage the trapezial muscle groups. Deep breaths in to the upper back, deep breaths into the chest cavity, deep breaths out. Maybe add a reach, pulling that right foot with the left hand if possible. That's a little advanced though. Stick to the stretch that feels best for you. Whether you're here or on one of those previous options. We're going to take a deep breath in as the right hand comes back around first, and then slow exhale as the right leg comes back around nice and slowly. Take your time. Once we're back to the center, left hand's turn to stay by the chest, right hand's turn to walk all the way out to the right side. Both palms are still pancake flat into the floor. Right shoulder pushes into the floor, left shoulder pushes away from the floor. Again, just feel free to hold this if you love a good shoulder stretch. Great option here. Or left leg kicks up into the sky, drops it down to the right side. It can be a straight leg, or you can go into a bent leg. You don't have to touch the floor, you just go as far as you can comfortably. Head can rest into the mat. If you want to, just hold this here, guys. Optional, left arm, keep it straight. Try to get it as close, left hand as close to that right hand as you can. Engage the upper back muscles, and optional, grab that left foot with the right hand. That's not easy. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. This last deep breath in, we're going to take it as the left hand comes back up and around. Slow exhales, that left leg follows back up and around. Both hands are going to come back either into the chest level, or you can use the hands as a pillow, wherever you feel better. We're going to flex both legs into a 90-degree angle and drop both feet down to the left side while keeping that 90-degree angle. Using that right foot to push into the left leg. Now, if this feels good, you can hold this here. I'll tell you when to switch halfway. Or you can go side to side at your own pace. Of course, if you want something a little bit more advanced, you can do almost a reversed or a prone pretzel, getting your right ankle above your left knee, and then using that right foot to push that left knee. And again, the right ankle is above the left knee, not on the back side of it, but on the front side of it. Right ankle above the left knee, and then pushing that right knee to the left, pushing that left knee to the right side. That's a little advanced. Again, you can hold that there. I'll tell you when to switch halfway. If that's too advanced though, sticking with that beginner option, whether you hold the beginner option and I'll tell you when to switch halfway, or you're transitioning side to side at your own pace. Going at your own pace is key, guys. We all start somewhere. Focus on that breath. If you're holding one side just like that, we're going to go ahead and switch to the other side. If you're moving side to side, keep it moving, utilizing one foot to push into that other leg as best you can. And whether you're holding or you're moving, we're going to come back to the center. We're going to extend the legs back out nice and slowly. We're going to bring the hands to the low back lumbar spine, one on top of the other. And then we're going to just drop the elbows and the shoulders into the floor, keeping the shoulders depressed, driving the armpits down away from the ears. And from here, there's 3 steps. After step 1 is dropping the elbows and shoulders into the floor. If you can't quite get the elbows into the floor, slide the hands away from each other just so that the fingers are barely touching. And that should help you out if you can't quite stack them on top of each other. Now, Step 2, we drive the elbows, retracting them away from the floor and the shoulders up away from the floor as much as we can. And then just for 2 to 3, maybe 5 seconds tops, we're gonna bring the hands away from the low back. And then, after holding it for a little bit, bring it back in, and then drop the elbows and the shoulders back down. That's 1. We're gonna go for 2 more here. Lifting the elbows and shoulders up first, then followed by the hands for a few moments, a few deep breaths in, deep breaths out, dropping the hands first, and then dropping the shoulders and the elbows back down to the floor. That's 2. You can rest that forehead right into the floor if you'd like to. Going 1 more here, and then resting those shoulders and hands. We're gonna rest those shoulders and hands back overhead for 1 final back stretch here in the prone position. This one is gonna take a little bit of thinking. Gotta put that thinking cap on. It's left arm, right leg. Opposite arm, opposite leg. Both stay straight. We're gonna lift. The left arm goes to the left, the right leg goes to the right. If you can't move the right leg anymore, stop moving the left arm. They move as a unit, and then they come back together. So, arm and leg follows each other as far as they can go together. Once you go as far out that side as you can, then you come back to the center and back down. Take your time here. Maybe just 1 more time on each side. There's so many more back stretches in the prone position I'd like to show you guys, but I'll save that for the next video because this one's getting absurdly long. We're going to take our hands, we're going to bring them to the chest level, and we're going to push ourselves, flexing the feet first, we're going to push ourselves all the way up into a quadruped position. That means hands under shoulders, knees under hips. We're going to do one of my favorite quadruped position stretches for the low back, the QL, quadratus laborum. If you ever have a lot of knots or a trigger point right in that low back area, in that sciatica region, this one's for you. We're going to focus, after making sure we're in this nice perfect quadruped position, nice wide fingertip base, we're going to take, doesn't matter if it's your right or your left, we're going to take 1 leg, we're going to slide it as far back as we can. All right, without dropping the hips back as well. All right, keeping the hips above the knee. And then we're gonna dip down to that side. Dipping the hip down to that side. You can stay up on the hand if you'd like to. You can drop down to 1 forearm if you'd like to. Or you can drop down to both your forearms, which takes a little bit away from the stretch, makes it a little easier. But I like to just drop down to 1 of my forearms and really sink down into it. Wherever you feel better. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. Nice and slowly, we're gonna dip back up, bring that knee back underneath the hip, and then slide that right leg back as far as you can without having the hips follow it. And from here, we're just gonna dip down. That foot can stay flexed or keep it extended wherever you feel better. Optional, drop down to the forearm, or both if you'd like to. Breathe through it. It's almost like a pigeon dip in a quadruped position. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. Nice and slowly, we're gonna dip back up to the top, back into that quadruped position, just for a little bit of cat-cow action here. The focus isn't on the feet. When the balls of my feet are on the floor, that's called flexion. When the laces of my shoes, if I was wearing shoes, is in the floor, that's called extension. When I'm in flexion, my chin tucks into my chest, I push into the floor with my hands, and my back arcs like a cat yawning. Before I move out of this, I extend my feet first, and then my chest and my chin starts to rise as my back starts to concave. I'm pushing into the floor the entire time as much as I'd like to increase the intensity of the stretch. Just remember, it's feet first, then the neck and the core starts to follow. Cat-cow. Hold each move for as long as you'd like. Flexing and extending that back. Open up that thoracic spine. And nice and slowly, we're going to return to center. We're going to flex the feet, have the balls of the feet into the floor, extend the legs away from the floor, knees away, drive the heels into the floor, and if you want to, you can just hold this here. If it gets too much, walk the hands forward into a high top push-up position. If it's not enough, walk the hands back into a further deeper pike position. And then if you'd like to, you can go into a rock flexion to extension. You can even work on one leg at a time by going 1 foot behind the other and then flexing and extending it that way. Driving the heels into the floor, then rocking up onto the balls of the feet. We won't hold this one for too long. Maybe 5 rocks if you're doing that single leg. And if you're doing your single leg just like that, go ahead and switch to the other leg. If you're doing both of them, keep going for 2. And whether you're doing singles or doubles, you're going to place both feet nice and wide. And you got 2 options to get back into the standing position. Option 1, you walk the hands back all the way to the feet. Or option 2, you cross the feet over, one over the other, until they get all the way to the hands. We're going to walk ourselves all the way back until we're in this bent over position. We're going to hang out here for a moment or two. We're going to take a deep breath all the way in. Slow exhale as we start to rise. Slowly, slowly, slowly. Take your time. Rising all the way back up to the top. Slow, slow, slow. And final stretch here to end off with the pronator quadratus stretch. All right. Very important muscle to stretch out here, base of the wrist. Basically, you want to take your pinky and bring it to the sternum, and then almost like take your other hand and grip the entirety of your hand and try to rotate it, trying to kind of twist the hand with some gentle pressure. Don't let the elbow chicken wing out. Keep the elbow of the the pronated hand tucked in to the body. And if you're not quite feeling it, instead of further rotating, what you can do here is, instead of having that pinky into the sternum, you can drop the pinky down into the belly button. And that's gonna maximize that stretch into the pronator quadratus. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out, never forcing it into pain. Always, always slight discomfort. Focus on that breathing. And go ahead and switch to the other hand. Same thing. Pinky to sternum first. Keep the elbow tucked into the body. Use this other hand to twist and rotate and pronate. And then driving that pinky down as best you can. The lower you go, the deeper of a stretching you get. Don't force it. Listen to that body. Breathe through it. Well, this building is closing down and I am running out of time. There are hundreds of more stretches I wish I could have showed you today, but these were the basics. Real quickly, I'm going to zoom through a bunch of stretches that I forgot to mention. Some wall stretches, some simple glute bridges stretches that I'm just gonna dart through just so you guys have them and it's on the record. All right, another really great stretch is the thoracic rotation in a glute bridge. If you're in a glute bridge, you wanna make sure you squeeze your shoulder blades together, depress the shoulders away from the ears, get the hips up, squeeze the glutes together, and then from here, we lean on one shoulder as we reach diagonally, not straight across or straight up, but perfectly diagonally. And we can just hold this here if you'd like to, 30 seconds to 90 seconds maybe, or we can transition side to side as best you can. Really good for the thoracic spine there. Now another one of my favorite low back stretches that I forgot to mention in the glute bridge is a single leg glute bridge dip. This gives you instant relief with some low back pain. If you have any of that, kiss it goodbye after this one, combined with the French model stretch. And of course you do 5 to 10 on each leg, making sure balance is key. And finally, of course, we have our lunges. We can't forget tons of lunge options, guys, whether you push the hips forward or you come back into it. You can go back and forth here to increase synovial fluid in the knee. We can even drop down, drive the knee forward as best as we can, and then extend both legs straight, and then sink them back down, get the chest up, drive it forward. I love doing this every morning to increase synovial fluid in my knee joints, maximize lubrication in the knee, preventing some injuries there. There's just so many lunge stretches. I can't show you them all, unfortunately. Like I said, I'll be cruising through a couple options here just to kind of give you an idea of how many more stretches there are to come. Especially if you're in the central Massachusetts area, come down to the Greendale YMCA, and this is where I teach these stretch classes, stretch, flex, and reset, every Tuesday night, 7:15 p.m. and Sunday morning, 8:15 a.m. All right, tons and tons of stretches here when it comes to lunges. All right, I'm not even hitting half of them. All right, but I do want to show you one that involves the wall. The leg in the back is the one that's closest to the wall. Hands on the head. Right elbow, if it's the right leg closest to the wall, right elbow stays in the wall the entire time. And you just kind of dip down as you rotate. Another really amazing full body stretch there in a lunge position. Again, playing with it, you don't want the leg in front because it kind of close to the wall because it kind of impinges you. So always it's the leg closest to the wall is the one in the back. All right. And you just go and dip down as far as you can to each side while keeping that elbow on that wall the entire time. And I know I keep saying this is the last thing and this is the last thing, but I'm trying to give you guys everything I got here. And so this final stretch here, if this is really the final stretch, is the transverse pelvic tilt, one of my favorite low back stretches of all time. You want to make sure you get a wall. You point your toe into that wall, and then you get your heels together to shape an L. And then you get your feet together. And we only did that because that's how far we should be away from the wall. It gives us perfect distance. So again, point your toe into the wall, then you bring your heels together, and then you bring your feet together. That's how far I should be. This shoulder closest to the wall never leaves that wall. Throughout that stretch, it's gonna wanna come off. Your job is to keep it on. You bring your knee parallel to your hip as best you can. If it's a little lower, that's okay. You try to get it up to the hip to maximize hip mobility. Now what we're not doing, I'm not just leaning into the wall. This is not gonna do anything for your low back. This is the pelvis. I'm trying to pop that pelvis up. So as best you can, popping that pelvis up into the wall, and then back down. Popping that pelvis up into the wall, and then back down. All right? That's the transverse pelvic dip or tilt. You do 5 or 10 on each side. You go ahead and switch to the other side. Same thing. Dipping up, coming down. Popping up, popping down. Don't let that shoulder come off that wall as best you can. Final stretch. Usually, there's never gonna be a final stretch. There's always more. But, last one I'll show you today, guys, is usually you can do this in a chair is the best way to do it. You wanna go nice wide legs, drive the hips into the wall, pushing those hips into the wall. Easy version, hands on the shoulder. You drop down all the way down, tucking the chin to the chest, and then you can come back up after holding it for a second or two. I like to take a deep breath in first. Exhale on the way down, drive the hips back into the wall. Don't let the shoulders round forward, keep the shoulders back. And then come back up, that's easy version. This is the medium version because more weight's distributed, pushing us down. And the hard version, we reach up, deep breath in. Exhale, not only we're reaching up, we're reaching forward. As we fall down, reach, you elongate the spine. Deep breath in, exhale on the way back up. Now, if we're doing this sitting down, we can do it with straight legs too, and that's gonna open up the hamstrings. But I said that was the last one like 50 times. Enough is enough. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked this video and it wasn't too chaotic for you, consider leaving a like button, maybe even subscribing, because I definitely will come out with another stretch video in the future about chair stretching, a couple more lunge stretches, and anything you guys have for me, suggestions, things you want to see in the future, just leave that in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care, y'all. Love's all you need. Peace.